Hey everybody, it's Aldo Gandhi, and I just want to let you know really quickly that our swag shop is reopened. DeepDishTees.com is where you go, and that's tees with T-E-E-S. Clever name, guys. They're the new home of our merchandise. You can get t-shirts, you can get caps, you can get coffee mugs, you can get hoodies, you can get all sorts of good stuff, and you'll help out the bar room with the purchase. So head over to DeepDishTees.com.
Put the children to bed. It's time for Dan and Aldo to bare their souls.
I love the Chicago Bears more than I do masturbating, and that is a lot.
Then, with 3 seconds left, Bob Avellini throws a 30-something yard touchdown pass to Greg Latta, and the Bears win, and I literally shit my pants. I swear to God, I literally did.
Eric Kramer, for me, I love the guy. He's a tragic figure. I mean, he embodies all that is.
If they don't run the ball here, I'm going to vomit. I swear to God.
Look, I don't mean any disrespect. He just didn't play that well. Not for a guy of his caliber.
You know, they won, but I'm going to be miserable all week because they stunk.
I don't really have any recollection of that at all, but I guess perhaps I blacked it all out.
So, Dan, tape is the ultimate tool for scouts and for coaches to evaluate players, to detect plays and so forth. And they spend hours looking at tape, right? Why do they so often get shit wrong?
Ladies and gentlemen, Dan and Aldo.
I'm alive. I didn't think I'd be alive. I got so sick. I thought I was going to die. Oh, but I'm alive. Dan Aguirre, how are you, my friend?
I'm well. I'm doing one of these marathon days where I've only had 2 hours of sleep, but I don't feel as shitty as I did 2 weeks ago.
Hopefully you don't feel as shitty as I did this week.
Yeah, it's unfortunate that we can only do 2 hours tonight, but I hope that it's two tremendous hours. I thought last week's show was really well, or went really well, rather.
Yeah. How long did we go last week? Like 4 hours or something?
5 hours.
5 hours. Yeah. And we're going to have an abbreviated show by that standard today, because I'm feeling a little under the weather on, what was it, Thursday night or Friday night? Something hit me, man, and I was freaking throwing up and shitting all over the place to the point where I had to call an ambulance to take me to the doctor because felt so effing weak. And they're giving me some medication, and I'm slowly getting back together. It's an inflammation of the small intestine, so it's one of those things that just takes some time to get back. I took the dog for a walk today, and when I got back, I was like thinking, man, can I fucking do this show? I feel so weak. But I've been eating well and drinking a lot of water, so I'm here, and we're going to have a great time today. By the way, what's the deal with your air conditioner? You got air now?
No. My understanding is the American Home Shield warranty people sent the local company an email on Thursday and said, hey, we're shipping the part. So that's a huge victory. That's like winning after 3 quarters. You know, you still got to finish the game, but at least, you know, you got to lead. And so I talked to him on Monday to confirm that with him. And he said they shipped it on Thursday. I haven't gotten it yet. They told me 5 to 7 days. So maybe this week they get it, and then we set an appointment, but I'm working day shift on Friday and Monday on overtime. So who knows? It would be so me for them to get it. And I'd be like, well, I need to wait another few more days before you can meet me to do the installation. But I don't know. Whatever. At least there seems to be hope that the thing is in the fucking mail. They should have overnighted it, but whatever.
It's pretty Somebody just posted, King Pookie Nation posted that the Bears have signed Brandon Marshall, but I'm not seeing that on any of my reports. And this is, of course,
I saw yesterday that he had worked out with them, but I didn't know that there was a deal.
Yeah, I don't think there is. He indeed did work out. This is the former linebacker, not the wide receiver who played for the Bears, but the former linebacker who I don't think he played all of last season, and he had an outstanding couple of years there with Danny Trevathan in Denver. They were both the inside linebackers. Brandon Marshall, that linebacker, I wanted they were free agents at the same time, and I was hoping that the Bears would sign both of them, but instead they signed Trevathan and Jarrell Freeman, who had an excellent year with the Bears, but then they discovered this guy's been juicing up, so his career went downhill after that discovery. But Brandon Marshall, I think that he is probably left town and trying to find a workout somebody else, somewhere else. I think that the Bears are just doing due diligence on a lot of these players. And we've got a lot to talk about today based on what transpired during press conferences.
Let me say one thing about Brandon Marshall quickly.
Please.
My friend Sylvester is a huge Denver fan.
Mm-hmm.
So I sent him this message and I said, well, what's your feedback? Being, again, he likes the Broncos like we do the Bears. So I said, what's your honest thoughts on this if the Bears sign him? He said, he's done, man. He said, if you sign him, you want him to be a backup. He's like, you don't want to depend on him as a starter at this point. And he said, I would be fine with the Broncos bringing him back as a backup.
Right.
So that was, again, a loyal, diehard Denver fan that I've been friends with for 30 years.
Mm-hmm.
He says he's not capable of starting in this league anymore, but have at it. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
And that's fully what I expected would be the evaluation on Brandon Marshall, because he's frankly, from what I've read, I can't say that I've seen any tape on him and his performance, but from what I've read over the last couple of years is that he's not the same player that he was when he was lined up shoulder to shoulder with Danny Trevathan in that defense. He's just started to kind of wear down like a lot of NFL players have. So it is interesting that he still has kind of backup potential. And so that means if the Bears are really interested, that means guys like Joel Iyiegbuniwe are on watch. And I think that this is kind of a make or break year for that particular inside linebacker and a couple of the other guys. So there's definitely depth issues at that inside linebacker. And so hopefully, just bringing these guys in will get more production out of the guys already on the team. Let's get some competition, even if those guys aren't on the practice field, but they're being brought in as a warning to these guys that your job is on the line. What was your reaction, Dan, when you heard the news about Matt Nagy being on Cris Collinsworth's podcast and saying that Justin Fields was Andy Dalton was the number one quarterback?
Honestly, that's kind of what he's been saying the whole time, far be it for me to defend coach, but they seem to have been consistent since they signed Dalton. Of course, that was prior to the draft, but I'm not surprised. I didn't hear the interview, so I'm excited to hear the audio that you've extracted from it. I did see that Collinsworth, I saw some tweets of some quotes from Cris saying that in his estimation, the Bears are the most interesting team in the league right now.
Mm-hmm.
So I would like to hear some of it, but again, I'm not surprised that they're going to go with Dalton. And if you want to look at the schedule and extrapolate a little bit, he's starting out with some familiar teams, not necessarily the Rams, but the AFC North, Cleveland, his former team, Cincinnati. You got Pittsburgh pretty early. So that's some teams he's played against, and maybe that helps. Maybe that means nothing, but it's just something that you want to get off to a good start somehow. And I've been saying the whole time until, I've never been a supporter of Andy per se, but I am now. And you'd have to think Fields is going to have to really, really outplay him, kind of like Trubisky did Mike Glennon in 2017 to win that job.
Mm-hmm. Definitely agree with what you're saying there. And I got to tell you, this whole Matt Nagy thing on the Cris Collinsworth show, there's actually two parts to that. It's the first interview. It's the interview that Nagy did with Collinsworth. And then it's the press conference that Matt Nagy had today and addressed that topic of Dalton being the number one quarterback. So let me first play. It's about a minute and 40 seconds long of Collinsworth asking Matt Nagy the question regarding who is the number one quarterback. The question is in the soundbite, so let's take a listen.
Is there a possible scenario where Dalton-Fields plays on opening night?
No, I mean, Andy is our starter. And again, I can't predict anything, that's, you know how it goes. I mean, there's so many things that could happen between today and that week one, but Andy is our starter and Justin's our number two. And we're going to stick to this plan. And, you always hope that nothing happens to Andy as far as injuries or anything like that. And that's why I can't say, I can't say 100% because we don't know what's going to happen to, hopefully, everything is good there. But, Andy is where we want him to be. He's had a great OTAs, and we're just going to continue to build with that and do this, stick to where we're at. And we're going to let Justin do his thing in training camp and preseason. And then we'll literally, as we go, just continue to just do everything we can to make sure that Justin is the best quarterback he can be. And then we just got to, in a perfect world, we're continuing to win games with Andy, and Justin's developing. He's getting better and better. And, then it just goes to, we'll know when the time is right and when it's ready for the team and for us to put them in. It'll all just naturally happen. And that's where I truly feel confident about that. I don't think there's any way we have to force somebody in there. I think it'll just be natural. It'll be organic, and it's going to be the best for the Bears. And that's in the end what this is all about.
Oh my God. Go ahead, Dan, your impression.
He's saying the same shit that he always says, but
he can say it in a lot fewer words.
I do believe him on this one, though. I do think that he feels that this is the best plan to utilize the young rook and bring him along slowly. I do think that because he worships Andy Reid, and everything Kansas City does, he wants to do, even if the context of it means that you can't. It doesn't matter. He's gonna just keep trying. So, this is what they did with Mahomes, so this is what I'm gonna do. You have to kind of admit, and I loved Wani. He had a lot of that in him with Jimmy Johnson. He wanted to be Dallas so badly when he was with the Bears. I kind of feel he's just going to keep doing whatever he can to copy the Chiefs.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I think you're right. I just wish, and I always find myself rewriting this guy. I just wish that he would say really a lot of what he said in the afternoon press conference today. Let me play that next, and then we can talk about this whole thing in context. This is Mark Silverberg of ESPN 1000 during the press conference, and God bless Mark Silverman. He asked the questions that I would have asked, and I think every Chicago Bears fan asked. God bless them. A lot of the other media members, take note. Listen to Mark his questions here.
Been wanting to know, did anyone in the organization ever promise Andy Dalton that he would be the starting quarterback on opening day of the regular season?
No, Mark, I'd say promises are, as we all know, promises can get pretty crazy. But what we told Andy is that he's our starter, and he knows that. And that's what Justin knows. That's what Nick knows, the rest of our coaches. And we tell these guys, knowing that there's got to be a start, right? So that's where we're at. And now they go ahead, and all three of them are going to be the best quarterback they can be. And then that gets into that plan, this plan that we keep talking about. And it takes a little bit of time. But to answer your first question, there was no promises, but we told him, and I specifically told him, you're our starter, so that's that. And now when you're in Andy's role, when you're in Justin's role, when you're in Nick's role, they know their roles. And now it's their job to be able to be the best quarterback they can be. But I'll just be very clear. That being said, does that mean these guys aren't absolutely not? They're competing. Like they want to be the best. And so and they wouldn't want each other to not any different. Or to be any different. So that's the answer to that.
And based on that, we played your answer from Cris Collinsworth's podcast today, where you said that Andy Dalton is the starter. So we wanted clarification whether or not that Justin Fields cannot win the job.
Whether it's clarification that he can't win it, yes, correct. Andy Dalton is our starter, and when we go through this process, there, like I said today, just calling a play in the huddle, and that gets to the instant gratification part that we all want.
Okay, this is the biggest semantical pile of shit argument that I've ever heard. Like Sylvie asks him, "Hey, did you promise him that he's the starter?" The answer is clearly yes. But he goes around like for 4 minutes to say that, promises aren't this or aren't that. But we've told him definitively that he's the starter. Well, okay, then maybe you don't want to use the word promise, but that's exactly what Silverman was asking him, was like, he's the starter, right? That's what you've told him. That was part of the reason he signed here, right? Right? Well, no, I want to go for 4 minutes to get around the question because I'm not, God damn it. He did it clearly. His own answer contradicts is what Sylvie asked him. The short answer should have been yes. He was promised he's going to be the starter, but he took umbrage with the word promise. But everything else that he said equated to him promising.
Yes, you're so right. You're so right. Why can't he just say, we have a starting quarterback? It's Andy Dalton. Justin Fields is number 2 quarterback. And the only way that can change is by performance on the field. Period. Or injury. Right. Period.
Real quick, and if you're a Republican, please just stay with me. This is 30 seconds. I remember when Biden was running for president the second time around, like when Barack ended up getting the nomination, they were doing one of those Democratic debates when they have fucking 14 people on stage, the ones early in the primaries.
Yeah.
And someone asked him, I think it was Brian Williams, that is the most brilliant thing Biden's ever done. I'm being sarcastic, but I just wish Nagy would do this. Brian Williams had this 2-minute question about how Biden has been a gaffe machine. And can you, sir, have the discipline to be on the big stage and not commit a gaffe? And he just kept going and going and going. And when Biden finally answered the question, they said, can you do this, sir? He goes, yes. That was his fucking answer. He had 2 minutes and he just left it as yes.
I remember that. Yes. And maybe that's what Matt Nagy.
Why can't Nagy just say yes? Just say yes, because the answer is fucking yes.
Yes, exactly. Today's press conference was 20 minutes long, and about a minute and a half, I'll say a little more, about 4 minutes was useful information, and the rest of it is 15 minutes of Matt Nagy pontificating and talking in circles, contradicting himself. He really needs a media management course. He really, really does. And forget about the bad decisions that he makes. He commits on the football field with play calling and, timeouts and all that stuff. Forget about that. But it's us fans who listen to press conferences. That could be the biggest reason why we get upset with the guy. It's because he's not effing honest. Cris Collinsworth in the podcast today said, I like this guy, Matt Nagy. He's so damn honest. And I'm like, fuck you, Cris Collinsworth. He's not. He talks in circles. He was honest maybe for about a day or two when he came to Chicago. And then he sat down with Ryan Pace, and Ryan Pace told him, you can't talk about this. You can't talk about that. We are secretive about this and we're secretive about that. And all of a sudden now what you see in the interviews, forget Dan, you just heard it. But when you see him searching for answers and stuff, it's so frustrating because he's just trying to come up with bullshit. And I've been giving him the benefit of the doubt for a while, but John Buffone, my co-mate on Bear Football and other shows that we hear on Bear Football, he's been saying for 2 years now, this guy talks in circles. This guy talks chicken shit, and it's very frustrating.
He's very duplicitous, and he just goes around in circles. But my question to anybody listening is the fact that I think in 18, well, if you combine the fact that we were winning, but he was such a huge departure from John Fox being just condescending in every sense, every turn, every press conference. Do you think if, like, let's say the Bears had gone from Mark Trestman to Nagy, then he would have been less tolerable right from the jump? Because I think he was just so antithetical to what we had for 3 seasons that he seemed like a breath of fresh air initially. But now it's the same thing. It's like you said, you've gone through a couple divorces. I went through one, but you know how at the end, like you have the same fight over and over, like about the same shit. Neither one of you can get over, and you're saying the same things. That's what Nagy does at every press conference. It doesn't matter what the question is. Like, he goes through this diatribe of things that it's like he could be giving you the same answer to regardless of what the question is. He's going to go off on this tangent of like 5 minutes of substance less. Help me out here with the word. Lack of substance. No substance to what he's saying. He's just talking. It's like he's in a deposition.
Yes.
Like, he's like, I got to be careful not to commit perjury here,
Well, your lawyer would say, don't talk very much. Just give yes or no answers. And that's where I would start. If I was his media manager, I would say, okay, let's start at the beginning. Yes or no. That's it. That's how you're going to answer these questions that I throw at you. Bruce Ali Walter Jordan. What a great moniker. That's probably his Mount Rushmore of, who the hell is Bruce? Bruce Ali, Walter Payton, Michael Jordan, Muhammad Ali. But who's Bruce? Anyway, he's in the chat room. He says, that's how Nagy manages personnel on the field the same way. And I think you're right, Bruce Ali, Walter Jordan. I think you're right. That is kind of how his mind works. It works. It doesn't work in a straight line. It veers off to the left, veers off to the right. He's not completely authentic. He's not completely honest. I'm afraid that's our head coach, and you're so right, Dan. I mean, when he first came to town, the thinking was Bruce Lee is the Bruce. That's a great one. He did seem like a breath of fresh air when he first came into town, and now it's like, man, you better start fucking winning, dude, because you're starting to. You mentioned that I've gone through a couple of divorces. I'm ready to go through a couple more divorces.
Fox like the type of woman that would tell you to your face that you're not fucking me, I'm not into you. You know what I mean? Like, he's just an asshole. He's like, I know I'm hot and you're not hitting it. Fuck you. And is a bitch about it. Versus Matt Nagy's the kind of guy that'll let you take him out to dinner and to make you think he's going to fuck you, and then he's not going to put out.
That's good, Dan. I like the way you put that. So I think it was our last show. I said maybe we should just bite the bullet, put him in there. Everybody is talking about how smart he is, how accurate he is, and so forth, and all of the great things that he's doing in practice. Well, there was one bit, and I'm not going to play it because that last time I played a Matt Nagy soundbite, people in the chat room were saying that we're getting an echo. So I'm not going to play it. I'm just going to paraphrase what Nagy said. Nagy said that one of the things that they're working on with him is, like, at the very first OTA when he went out in the field, they had to work on some really basic, simple things that Fields was not accustomed to doing because he didn't do in college, and maybe had not done since high school, or maybe had not done in any of his football career. Things like, getting the snap out from under center, reading certain defenses, knowing that when they're in a cover 4 formation and then they switch their defensive call just as he's snapping the ball and they go to a cover 2 or the 1 man high, 1 man low, all this fucking shit. Those are things that he's got to learn that he was not really proficient at in college. They don't have any doubt, of course, that he's going to learn these things because everything that we've heard about him is that he can take what he learns in the classroom to the practice field and then to the football field during a game. So that's great. But it was fascinating for me to hear Coach Nagy tell Cris Collinsworth, these are the things that we're working with him on. And so that makes a lot of sense. But to close the door, to just slam the door shut on him possibly being the week 1 starter, to me just doesn't make any sense. If Joe Burrow can be the week 1 starter, if who else? Name a recent rookie quarterback who started first game as a pro. If those guys can do it, why not Justin Fields? That whole thing with Patrick Mahomes, maybe that's not the formula for everybody. Maybe.
No, I agree, but he's going to stick with Kansas City. That's who he aspires to be. That's whose water he's carrying.
I'm out of breath already.
I mean, maybe Andy is someone that he should aspire to be, because at least he has gone to 2 Super Bowls and won one of them.
Mm-hmm.
But I just think he can't see that the personnel stuff is different and talent level is different in situations. And it just, like I've said so many times, it's like he's playing a goddamn video game. He's like playing Madden. He's in a Madden tournament and he's trying to show somebody up that he's playing against.
That's what it seems like.
You won't believe you won't be expecting this Cordero Patterson toss sweep to the short side.
Mm-hmm.
You're not going to see that coming. It's like, again, he's always trying to outsmart the kid that's like in 9th grade that's playing him online in Madden.
Mm-hmm. Indeed. All right. Let's move on and talk about some of the other things that we learned today. In the chat room, by the way, Dan W says, what is Sean Desai all about? What is his defense? And as somebody in the 4,000 Clovers, his response is Fangio. I mean, Desai is a Fangio student, and that is absolutely correct. He was his student. They're close friends. A lot of people expect that a lot of the scheming that we'll see from the Bears defense is going to be a lot of the stuff that Vic Fangio did. And that's primarily a lot of disguising of what's going on in the defensive backfield, trying to confuse the quarterback, trying to offer different looks, trying to make him think. And that is so critical, I think, for a guy like Eddie Jackson. Eddie Jackson had his best seasons under Vic Fangio. And I think Sean Desai was promoted from defensive back coach to now being the leader of the entire defense, so that he can implement more of the Vic Fangio type of thinking, as opposed to the Chuck Pagano, who Chuck Pagano was much more Chuck Pagano did disguise his defenses, but his approach to it was different than what Sean Desai offered. So I'm hopeful. Thanks, Bruce, Ali, Walter, Jordan, who tells me that was a good answer. But here's the big thing that came out of the press conference today. Where the fuck is Eddie Goldman? Where the fuck is Eddie Goldman? He didn't play last season. That's understandable. He decided to opt out. Everyone has had that option, just like everyone now has the option to get a vaccine or not get a vaccine. There's a couple of prominent Chicago Cubs players who decided not to get the vaccine, and there's controversy about that. But that's their choice. I don't agree with them, but that's their choice. Well, Eddie Goldman had the choice last season. He chose to opt out. That's cool. But today was a voluntary workout. You had to be there, Eddie. Where are you, bro? Where are you? We need you in this defense. Eddie Goldman plays 60% of the snaps on this Chicago Bears defense, and it's a big reason why their run defense in the past has been so good. In that 2018 season, the run defense gave up 77 yards, on average, 77 yards a game. In 2019, it jumped up to 100, but that's still fantastic. And then without Eddie Goldman last year, it was 115 yards per game. And so obviously it wasn't just Eddie Goldman. It was also the play of Danny Trevathan that hurt a lot. But Eddie Goldman is an important part of this defense. Does it worry you, Dan, that he did not show up for practice today and it was unexcused?
Yes. How could it not? Like you said, I think we talked about this last week or maybe 2 weeks before. I made the analogy of it's two different things. I'll never compare my work to the athleticism and the grace and the power of playing professional football, but just being laid off from radio and then having to come back in, and that's just fucking talking. All the timing that it took to get back into rhythm, like you know, potting this up, pushing this down, hitting that button, and it sounds like no big deal. And in the big scheme of things, it isn't. But it takes, like, it took me probably after being laid off and coming back, I bet you it took me a month to get my tempo again, and it probably took me 4 or 5 months to feel like, okay, I'm back.
Mm-hmm.
So imagine if you were playing fucking NFL football and you haven't played in 2 seasons.
Right.
Like, you need as much time as you can possibly muster to get back to who you were. So, of course, I mean, the fact that he's not there, I mean, Khalil Mack's there, right?
Khalil Mack was there.
Right. And he's like, that's the guy that you should aspire to be.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
And if the leader's there, then, and you obviously, the Bears have been patient with you, and they said no one criticized him for taking 2020 off. Now, I know it was a part of the collective bargaining agreement that they could do so, but I'm saying no one said anything or intimated or hinted that, oh, he's not a team player because he didn't show up with us. No one said anything negatively about him. So now, I mean, you're under contract. Now it's your turn to you got to reciprocate now. Let's see. You're some loyalty here.
Exactly. And speaking of contract, he's due to make $7.8 million this season. At least that's what the cap hit is. So if he decided to retire, the Bears would then have almost $8 million available in cap space to acquire another interior defensive lineman, to address the issues at depth at other positions. You can name it: inside linebacker, cornerback, offensive line. So there are needs on this team. So if he's not going to play, hopefully he's going to retire. Now, if he decides not to retire, I don't know what the rule is on that. If he doesn't show up, he can't. There's no way that would still count against the cap if he. I
was going to say, for some reason he doesn't play, there's got to be a cap exception to help the team. There must be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Now, have we had a definitive question toward? Well, I shouldn't say toward Nagy. He would go for 6 minutes without answering anything. But do we have an official status for number 91 yet?
Well, here's the thing. I wish I could play you the soundbite because it would frustrate you even more. And I love frustrating you. But yeah, Brad Biggs asked him, yeah, we didn't see Eddie Goldman out there. So what's his status? And there goes Matt, hemming and hawing. You're right, Brad. He wasn't out there. You're right. And I've talked to him, and we're hopefully going to get him in soon. And then Brad comes in and says, wasn't an excuse absence. Pause. No, it wasn't. It's like, dude, what you don't come out to these press conferences prepared. You don't come out ready to say Eddie Goldman did not show up for practice today. It was an unexcused absence. We're handling that internally. There's nothing more I can offer on that topic. Moving on. Any other questions?
Are they fighting him?
They're not. There was no information on whether they're fighting him, which is a good question because he is supposed to get a roster bonus, a bonus of $100,000 for showing up to these camps. This is the mandatory camp, so you have to show up. So I'm assuming that he is saying, fuck the $100,000. I don't want to be there. And if that's the case, that not only is he letting down his teammates, his coaching staff, the city of Chicago Bears fans, the organization, but he's also just saying, fuck you, $100,000, then that's very fucking concerning. Very. Do
you think that maybe I've used this analogy on the show so many times, but again, I'll go Stallone Rocky 3 here. Do you think taking that year off, he's lost the eye of the tiger?
That could be. I don't know. That's 4,000 Clovers has a good question. Is he still afraid of getting COVID? And if that's the case,
then get a fucking shot.
Yeah, get 4 shots. But if that's
I'm not trying to sound like a big liberal here on the, but I mean, the vaccine, I'm okay. If you're really that worried about it, you can get the 2 vaccines, or you can get the Johnson & Johnson singular one.
Right. King Pookie Nation Alvarez says, does he still owe money from COVID-19? I think the way that it works is that he was paid a certain percentage of his salary last year, and then a large percentage of it he was supposed to collect this year when he showed up to camp. So, yeah, he didn't collect 100% of his salary when he opted out. He collected some of it, but not all of it. And so, yeah, if he doesn't show up this year, there's going to be some ramifications in terms of, maybe lawyers make the call and say, hey, you owe us some money. Something is up. Something is up with this guy. I hope that everything is cool and that he's healthy and that maybe it's not COVID related. Maybe there's something else, but it would be nice too if the Chicago Bears organization clued us in a little bit more. Why not just say, Eddie's having some issues. Eddie, I don't know, Eddie, still has COVID issues, concerns. He still has whatever. Give us something so that we're not here speculating. It just bugs me that this organization is not more transparent. It's not like the opposition is already saying, oh, wow, we can game plan without them having Eddie Goldman. You already fucking game plan without Eddie Goldman. So what the fuck? Tell us the truth, man. I'm sick of this shit. Don't lie to me.
I agree. It's maddening.
It really is, man. I just don't understand it. Every organization, I've worked a lot with corporate 500 organizations, and that's what we preach as a communications team. Try to be as transparent as possible. We know that from a strategic and competitive standpoint, you can't share everything with your shareholders or with the public or with this and so forth. But the more you can share, the more your customers, your fans, whatever it is, they're going to believe in you more and be more on your side. When you're caught lying, or when it's easy to detect that you're spilling out bullshit out there, then you're going to have a mutiny on your hands. And it's close to being a mutiny over at Alice Hall. I'll be the first one with the fucking pitchfork and and fire or whatever it's called. All right. Another big concern, Mr. Dan Aguirre, and I know this is really going to set you off. Guess who was at camp today, but he didn't do anything because he's got an injury?
That's the mighty Quinn.
Yes, indeed. Here's a guy that we signed for $30 million. He shows up to camp last year injured, and now he shows up to camp again with a back problem. Did we make a mistake in signing a 30-year-old defensive lineman who, outside of the season he had with the Dallas Cowboys, the 3 seasons before, it was clear that his better days were behind him? This is a catastrophe in the making. If this guy doesn't play or play sparingly or plays the same way he did last year for this defense, fuck it, man. We're talking a record of under 500. You need pass rushers in this league. And Ryan Pace has made a fucking mistake in signing this guy because he's just not there. He's not 100%. I don't get this. This is very concerning to me.
Yeah, it's like I've said again several times in the past that I was appreciative of Quinn's awareness, and he was cognizant of the fact he struggled last year, and you could tell that he cared about it. So I was giving him the benefit of the doubt, and I appreciated his ability to convey that to us, and not bullshit us. That again, the transparency thing. But goddamn, if he's hurt again, it's like, how is he getting hurt? I mean, you start to think that this thing is snake bitten now. Like, there's so many, like Kevin White, like every year there's a new injury, and what did the Bears do during that crisis or the crises? Every year they lied and bullshitted us of what was really going on with the guy.
Mm-hmm.
So, the Bears act like, that they're the CIA or something. They can't really tell the children, the American people, they can't really tell us what's going on because because, we won't be able to fathom it or accept it. And we don't live in reality or some shit. It's kind of condescending, but yet here I am. I'm always going to be Team Bears. So I don't know what that says about me.
Do you think that it has something to do with, Ryan Pace thinking, I fucked this shit up, man. I really fucked this up. Signing this guy, and the whole physical thing, during COVID, $30 million. Holy shit. We better not talk about it. Keep it quiet because I really fucked this up. You know how when you make a mistake sometimes and you hope that nobody notices? And that's the impression I'm getting with the Chicago Bears right now is we made a mistake here. Let's keep it on the QT here. Maybe nobody will notice.
I mean, perhaps maybe it could be something as simple, and I'm trying to be optimistic, maybe something as simple as, he's been working really hard in his own time to rectify what happened last year, and he's got some soreness. If that's the case, it's kind of like the Jay Cutler thing in the championship game. You could have rewritten that entire narrative where everyone is after him saying he has no heart. Mm-hmm. If you just come out and tell everybody ahead of time, this dude's fucking hurt.
Yes.
He's got a grade 2 tear of a ligament in his knee. He can't stand. Mm-hmm. He's fucking hurt, and he's trying to get back into the game in spite of that injury. Then maybe people view him as having heart and trying to persevere through pain, but they never get in front of these things. And so what I'm trying to say is if Quinn really is, he's working really hard and just has some general soreness, and we're just trying to, he's 30, 31. We're just trying to be cool with him. Then say that.
Yes.
Then I think everyone could appreciate it and say, oh, okay, he's working really hard, and we appreciate that as fans. Versus the flip side of it is now we're just left to wonder and speculation and to give this guy, vitriol because we're going to be pissed at him now because thinking, like you said, that's a terrible acquisition. Look at all this money this guy's stealing from us, and they could silence all of that by playing some PR, just some public relations.
I hear you, man. I hear you. And, I get pissed off at myself when I fly off the handle and I start, berating players because I don't know. Maybe the guy was working out, like you're saying, he was trying to come back and have a good season and he tweaked his back and so forth. But you're right, Dan, we need, honest information from these guys, some context. How did he tweak that back, Matt Nagy? Tell us exactly. We need Mark from the Waddle and Sylvie show to ask all the questions because he did such a great job of asking those questions about Dalton being the starter and so forth. We should have him handle all the questions in these press conferences. And I don't mean that as a slight on our friends who cover the Bears, but that was a great job by Sylvia on that. What else to happen in this press conference today? Jimmy Graham, the tight end.
I read the strangest thing. They said he had been in a rollover and his pulse didn't raise or his heart rate didn't raise above 89 or something. How the fuck does anybody know that?
I think he just said it or something.
Yeah, you can't. I mean, if I'm masturbating, my heart rate goes above 89. If I'm doing a push-up, my heart rate's going to go above 89. And maybe that's an indictment on my weight. But the point is, if I start to work out in any way, if I'm getting blown, my heart rate's going to go up above 89. You're going to tell me this guy's in a rollover several times, flipping over, and then, but he's so cool. I'm not buying it. If that's the case, I was thinking, well, maybe that's why when he was playing against the Saints or, former teams or even Green Bay, it just feels like he's not there. Maybe he needs a little bit of fire then. Somebody, he's sedated.
Yes,
this fucking guy is like Reagan at the end in 88, where he's like, I'm not sure if I'm here.
That's cruel.
Nancy's elbowing him set up, sit straight. For God's sakes, you're the president.
Oh, that's funny. Well, apparently when he caught that touchdown in New Orleans and he ran through the tunnel, he started to think back then, maybe this is it. Maybe this is my last catch as a professional football player. I am thinking about retiring. And he talked with Matt Nagy. He talked with Ryan Pace, and they helped convince him to come back for another year. Graham said that part of it is that he really wants to get that Super Bowl ring, and he wants one more shot at getting that Super Bowl ring. The other part of it is that he still feels like he can play at a high level. And then thirdly, he said he can offer a lot to guys like Cole Kmet and some of the other younger guys on the team based on his experience, based on his production over the years and so forth. And so he kind of considers himself, and these are my words, not his, but kind of a player coach or player mentor type for these guys. That all sounds really, really good. But I'm going to go there again, Dan Aguirre. The choice was getting that $9 million from Charles Leno or getting it from Jimmy Graham. I still feel that they made a mistake. As much as I like Jimmy Graham, and I think that I'm glad he's on the roster, but I need help at left tackle. And even if it is Charles Leno, I'm not sure we should entrust that left tackle position to a rookie, a guy who we're expected to play 17 games at left tackle when he hasn't played 17 games at left tackle in his college career. I'm worried about that. And so I know I'm going to get attacked in the chat room about that because I'm sticking up for Charles Leno, but I just don't see how you can choose the tight end position.
You know what's really funny? Your criticism of Charles Leno is kind of like my criticism of Khalil Mack, where everyone just comes after you. No matter, It doesn't matter if what you're saying matter. You know what I mean? If it has any substance to it at all.
Yeah.
If it's valid, they just hear like, oh, Aldo's defending Charles Leno again. Dan's criticizing 52 again. It's like you get irrational people like just pissed at you no matter what you're saying.
And so it's begun. 4,000 Clover says, this is where everyone in the chat is going to disagree with you, Aldo. LOL. Yes, you're right. I know it.
What if, okay, I don't want to say this now and then eat my word. Well, no, I do want to eat my words later. I want Jimmy Graham to have a phenomenal season because he's on the team. But it does always start to, if you're thinking about retiring, it starts to feel like you're like a boxer that's past your fucking prime and that you're just in it for that last payday. You know, like you're just trying to get that last big fight, but do you really still have the fire and the skills? We've signed you because your fight's 5 years ago. So can you still be that guy? If you're on the fence, like, I mean, I guess Brett Favre played okay after, I want to retire. He still led the team to NFC Championship game twice after all that shit with the Packers once, Vikings once. For the most part, if you've already checked out, it's kind of hard to come back. So if you were going to cut somebody or get rid of that caps, to create caps, maybe you do get rid of Leno. Maybe you also get rid of Jimmy Graham, and maybe you keep Kyle Fuller. If you need money, if you're freeing up money, so maybe you keep Fuller, you keep 23 instead of Jimmy Graham. What do you think about that?
I think that's an outstanding point. Now you still would have probably had to create some more cap space to keep Kyle Fuller because he was scheduled to make $20 million, or you would have had to extend his contract.
Do you think maybe he didn't want to be extended here with Matt Nagy? He's like, fuck, I'm not signing an extension. It's
a fair question. It really is a fair question. He may have wanted, and it's concerning to me a little bit. He may have saw an opportunity to go join his guy, Vic Fangio. We know that Kyle Fuller and Vic Fangio had a super tight relationship. They played golf together. Fuller has credited Fangio for helping him get his career going after
criticizing him strongly early
on. Exactly. And Fuller was appreciative of that. And so perhaps he saw that as an opportunity to, be back with his best buddy, Vic Fangio, a guy he thinks could get the best out of his game.
Real quick, if you don't mind me interrupt you, I apologize.
No, that's okay.
We were talking about like the Cutler thing, and then Eddie Goldman. Think about that year we had. Everyone was down on Kyle Fuller because all we heard was that he had like it was a routine knee scope. Remember that? And he missed the whole season.
Yes.
So as Bear fans, we're like, man, where's this guy's heart and all that, he came back obviously and made us all fans again. But the Bears could have squashed that right from the top and told us what was really fucking happening with the guy.
Bruce Ollie Walter Jordan makes a great point. He says Fuller basically gave Fangio a $10 million discount, which is correct because the Bears were scheduled to pay him $20 million and he signed with the Broncos for $10 million. Now, the reason the Bears were paying him $20 million is because of the way they structured the contract to make it backloaded so that they can create cap space to sign players in 2019, 2018, and so forth. So that's part of the problem here. And the Bears continue to use that practice, which is going to continue to be a problem in future years. Eventually you got to pay the piper. Eventually you're taking money from the future. The Bears are working on a credit card. Everybody credits Joey Leno, whatever his name is. He's a cap master and so forth. But, the New Orleans Saints went through a couple down years because they were using that same kind of philosophy, and they didn't have any money to sign anybody. They eventually bounced back with some smart acquisitions, but can we rely on Ryan Pace to make smart acquisitions? Robert Quinn. All I got to say is Robert Quinn. The other thing I was going to say, regarding Jimmy Graham, I forgot. I lost my point. It'll come to me. But yes, this is concerning to me of the fiscal decisions that the Bears make. The people in the chat room there's actually a couple of people in defense of Charles Leno. You got to have some blocking, even if it's the same blocking you had a year ago. And I'm just concerned that Tevin Jenkins is not going to be ready game one. And then for 17 games, you're asking him to play left tackle. And if I ask the question, who is the Bears' backup left tackle? Who's going to back up Tevin Jenkins? I don't think anybody knows. I don't have an answer.
Let's just hope it's not Spriggs. He's gone now, right?
Jason Spriggs is gone.
Good.
Bruce Holly Walter Jordan says, "Fuck Leno." He even spells.
What happened with the guy from the football team, the tackle that they cut? There was some talk that the Bears were going to sign the guy after Washington cut him.
Oh yeah, he's still out there looking for a job. Clearly, the Bears don't have enough money to meet his demand, and so he's waiting it out. Maybe the Bears told him, "Hey, can you hold on a couple of weeks? Because we are going to clear some money. We just got to wait a couple, and so forth." And maybe I will not at all be surprised if there is a substantial name player on the Chicago Bears who is released just so that they can free up some more money to do some things. We'll see who. Mule Skinner says, "Aldo, my friend, drink some buttermilk to coat your lower intestine. It's an old-time remedy, but worse." Buttermilk. Ooh, man, I've never had that before.
Buttermilk would be like eating pussy if there was a yeast infection. Just eat the infection out. Oh, God.
Mule, is that correct? Mule, and Mule also says that I need to stay away from the booze short term. Indeed, I do have to. It's been 6 days since I've had a drop, and I don't miss it at all. But I'm looking forward to the next time Dan and Aldo do a show, and I can sip on my favorite beverage.
Maybe we can drink some in Cleveland.
Oh, you better believe it, man. Do you drink it all, Dan?
I used to. I don't have enough time. Like, again, I'm working 84 hours again this week as an example, but I think maybe I'll make an exception for at least not during the game. Like I said, I will not drink during the game. For one, could be hot. It's week 3. I don't want to be dehydrated.
All right.
But maybe Saturday night, or maybe if we do something after the game. Because the game's going to end at 4 p.m. roughly, 4:30 East.
Oh yeah, so, well, we might be doing a show after the game. We might hop in and do the Bear football show with John Buffon and Tyler Ellis, and you and I from beautiful Cleveland. Or we just might say, "You guys handle it. Dan and I are going to go to some whorehouses and get drunk."
Well, if for some reason the Bears can win that game, and it's not like at a price like, oh well, we won, but player A or B got hurt, and you're like, oh, that's the end of the season. Like when Cutler broke his thumb in 2011, you're like, oh, we beat the Chargers, but we've lost Cutler the rest of the year. Now we're fucked, Caleb Haney. But assuming that the mood could be somewhat positive, I would love to just be on and talk for the next 5 hours about the Bears at that point. That would be great to me, especially if we had some booze after the game and then drink and be happy. Like I told you, the Bears have lost every game I've ever gone to. So I would love to be sauced up and be happy after the game. That'd be tremendous.
That would be tremendous.
That's if I'm writing a script, that's what I want to happen.
Cool. Well, let me ask you this. On Monday morning, when you and I are in Cleveland, you got tickets to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, correct?
Yeah, I already paid for them. We're scheduled to be there at 11 a.m.
Okay.
That's the earliest I could get because that's when they open, because I know both of us have a long drive. So,
right. Well, that's good. I mean, we can so we can drink on Sunday night. That's good. We can stay up all night and have some drinks, especially if the Bears win.
Because you figure if you go to a museum, when I went to the NFL Hall of Fame in Canton, you know, it's like 2 hours or so for you to get a feel of everything. So let's assume that we both leave around 1 p.m. You know, granted, you're going to get an hour back by the time you get home. You're going to gain an hour, obviously, because you're going to Central Time. But for me, I guess what I'm trying to say is we're both probably going to arrive home close to 7, 6 Central, 7 Eastern time. So, yeah, I'm saying we could stay up and still get a good night's sleep the next night if so, yeah, I think that's definitely a plan.
Excellent. Hey, I want to get back to the Justin Fields discussion that we talked about earlier. One of the I do encourage people to take a listen if they can put up with Matt Nagy rigmarole talk. He does offer some interesting things. One of the things that he talks about is the whole process of acquiring Justin Fields. And I, I'm always interested in the NFL draft. And I know, Dan, you are too, to a degree. You don't follow college football, but the actual draft itself, it interests you, correct?
What, like the draft night? I know by that time from the previous season what positions I feel like that the Bears need improvement on. So I sit and watch as a fan wanting to fill those needs, which is the exact opposite of how the Bears usually draft. At least that's what they espouse. They say they always go for the best player on the board versus your needs. But as a fan, I'm always thinking about their needs. So yes, I do pay attention to the draft when it's on. I'm typically at work or somewhere else, but I was going back and forth with Zimmerman, like, man, come on, we need a fucking corner here. And he was trying to tell me corners don't matter. I'm like, are you nuts?
See,
but yeah, I care.
We got to have Zim on the show so I can debate him on this, because I think corners now matter more than ever. It allows defenses to do certain things in terms of a pass rush. It's almost like a chicken and the egg thing. Well, what do you need? You need great defensive backs to cover receivers really, really well so that the defense can get to the quarterback, or do you need a great pass rush so that the cornerbacks can then get turnovers on badly thrown balls because there was a defensive lineman in the quarterback's face and he had to force to throw? Yeah, exactly. It is the chicken. No, it is the egg. Yes, no, it's the chicken. However you want to answer that, you need them both. There's no doubt about it. Which one do you need more? I think nowadays, because quarterbacks are getting rid of the ball so quickly, I think you need defensive backs. You need a lot of them, and you need some really good ones. And we've seen defenses over the last decade and a half almost revolve around a star cornerback, because he takes away one side of the football field and the offense now is forced to work in the middle and the left side of the football field. And that gives time for the pass rush to create some things. Remember, what's his name before he went to Washington? He played for Ron Rivera. He had that outstanding season.
Oh, yeah, the corner. Then he was a complete bust out in Washington.
Exactly, because he left that perfect formula that he had. But nonetheless, what was I going to say? Geez, my memory is just so fucked up nowadays.
Well, you can blame it on the small intestinal issue.
I'm still thinking about that goddamn buttermilk and what it might taste like. Yeah.
Oh, my God.
What I was going to say was, so Nagy talks about how they came about landing Justin Fields. So I'll paraphrase some of it, but I do encourage you guys to listen to the Cris Collinsworth podcast. The first, I want to say 10 minutes of it is Chris placating Nagy and talking about his career and his playing days and so forth. Nobody wants to hear that. I fast forwarded through most of that.
Nagy wants you to hear that.
Yes.
He wants you to know.
Exactly. Yeah, I'll do a 30-minute podcast with you, but we got to spend half of it talking about my time as a quarterback.
I could have been Tom Brady if I had just gotten that fucking opportunity.
Right. So he says that the Bears started making phone calls about, a week or so before the draft just to find out, are you interested? Would you be interested? Would it be a waste of time for us to call you on draft day if a player that we like is falling? And so that's when they got the gauge of who would be receptive to a phone call and who would not several days before the draft. And then leading up to the draft, they made no phone calls. They just laid low. And then the day of the draft, that's again when they got on the phone and they started talking to the people who said, yeah, give us a call if, we're open to anything. So when Justin Fields started to drop, that's when they had a inkling that somewhere between 7 and 11, they could make a trade. That those teams in that area were receptive to making a trade, and that and they thought if our guy falls to that place, that's when they made the call and settled the deal. And Collinsworth asked, well, did the Giants general manager, and I'm paraphrasing here, did they, was there a lot of negotiating going on? And Nagy says, no, there is a draft chart that has value points for every draft pick. And so almost every general manager uses it. So if you're offering a third round pick and a second round pick, it equates to 1,400 points, and that equals the 10th pick overall. Then you make, and again, I'm paraphrasing, I'm just coming up with these numbers out of my ass. Then that you would make the move based on what this chart says. And so it was just an interesting how he recalled it. And he says, that it was so exciting to be in the draft room and watch all of Ryan Pace's staff working the phones. He compared it to it being the New York Stock Exchange. He said, I'd never been to the New York Stock Exchange, but I would imagine it was the same kind of energy, people working on the phones, trying to make that deal. So interesting story. And then the one other addendum to that is that he talked highly about all 5 of those first-round quarterbacks and says that all 5 of them have really good chances to be franchise quarterbacks, which leads me to believe that if Justin Fields would have been drafted, they probably then would have set their sights on Mac Jones, who you love, by the way. Right?
Well, I mean, I didn't watch college football. I just knew that night that I wanted one of those quarterbacks, and I was like, man, do we really want to? What if the kid from Florida falls to us? And I was asking everyone in our little private group, Aaron and Zimmerman and Tooch, and I was like, and Joey Two Scoops of like, what if it's what's his name, Drexel or something?
Mm-hmm.
I was like, what if this is the guy that falls to us? And they were all like, no, we don't want him. So
you're talking about Kyle Trask, right?
Yeah, I knew it was something. Whatever. I don't watch that. I definitely don't watch the SEC. I know everyone else wants to suck the SEC's dick, but I don't like the theme song. I don't like their coverage. I don't like the way CBS's college football looks or sounds. I'm going to watch college football. It's going to be somewhere on the West Coast. Like a Pac-10 game, I guess, is what I'm more interested in. But anyway,
what is it about SEC football? I mean, you just listed a few things.
I just don't like it. It's so force-fed down your fucking throat. For one, I don't like those states typically either politically. But no, I mean, I don't like the humidity. I don't want to be down there. And again, the politics don't line up. But I'm joking about that. But even though it's true. But no, I don't like the way. I hate that. For one, I really hate that song. That the SEC on CBS theme song. Like I can hear it in my head now. It just really, really makes me unhappy.
That's funny. It makes you unhappy.
But on the flip side of that, I hate hearing Gus Johnson scream every time there's a first down on Fox.
That's right.
God, he was doing that in the NFL 20 years ago too. Like Gus would always be at the really shit game, like the worst, like the 0-14 Detroit Lions against, and it would always just be like 6-3, and at the very end, like Charlie Batch has completed a pass to set up the game-winning field goal with Jason Hansen, and Gus is screaming like he just watched Joe Montana hit John Taylor for the game-winning touchdown in Super Bowl 23. So,
oh man, hey, one other thing regarding the Collinsworth show that I wanted to get your point of view on. Collinsworth says, you know what? I feel sorry for my old buddy, Cincinnati Bengal quarterback, Andy Dalton. You know, can you imagine being him? And he comes to Chicago. He thinks he's going to have the number one job, and he's got a chance here. And then all of a sudden, the Bears draft Justin Fields. And again, I'm paraphrasing how he placed it. But, you know, how does Andy Dalton feel? And so what's your thought on that? Should we give a fuck on how Andy Dalton feels? I mean, isn't he a big boy? And, you know, shouldn't he have known?
I'm sure he is. I mean, for real, like, that's the one thing we should probably credit Dalton. He's never said or done anything, as far as we know, that could even be interpreted as, you know, entitled or unprofessional. So, man, I'm sure he understands the gig. They said they called him. They talked to him ahead of time. He knows he's getting paid really good money. It's such a higher, you know, tag that he got last year, you know, what, $3 million compared to $10 million. He's got a 70% increase.
Mm-hmm.
And they talked to him before to make sure his feelings were, you know, ironed out. So I think he knows the score of the game, and I'm sure he'll be fine. Yeah. From his perspective, he just wants to play good enough football, whether it's in Chicago or somewhere else. The following year, he gets another contract.
Well, what he wants most of all is a fucking ring, I would imagine. I mean, even more than being the starting quarterback in the Super Bowl. If the Bears make it to the Super Bowl with Justin Fields and he's the backup quarterback, I'm sure he wouldn't mind that too much. But maybe I'm wrong. Now Nagy, take it for what it's worth. This is Nagy talking. Does say that the first couple of weeks, you know, there was, he didn't use the word friction, but the quarterback room, you know, those two guys weren't sharing notes much. But after that, after they got to know each other and so forth, that they have a great relationship, and he even threw in Foles' name. All three are helping each other out. Andy Dalton is really encouraging Justin Fields. He'll come to him and say, that was a great throw. He'll make sure you look at the safety here and do this and do that and so forth. So there's some good camaraderie and good coaching or kinship going on between the quarterbacks. But it was interesting that he at least revealed that at first it was a little frosty, just like it was between Patrick Mahomes and Alex Smith, which is, I guess, understandable. You know, you bring in a young quarterback and this motherfucker's going to take my job. You know, I know it's going to happen and I'm going to lose a good thing here. I was getting laid by so many women in this town, and it's really a bummer. 4,000 Clover says, I don't give a fuck how Dalton feels about it. LOL. If he starts, good for him. If not, he gets paid well to sit on the bench.
Yeah, it's exactly. His $10 million contract will suffice. The same thing for Foles. Because again, if you're looking at Foles, I mean, he's the guy you have to question. Like, I wonder how he's feeling about this. He's just been, you know, sentenced to third string and has accomplished more at this point than either guy.
Yes.
You know, we hope that Fields is going to be the man, but at this point he's a fresh green, you know, rookie, and Foles has, you know, been a Super Bowl MVP, and Andy Dalton's never won a playoff game.
Zach Sullivan says we hired two $10 million ego strokers. Yeah, between Foles and Dalton, that's $20 million in salary that you're giving when you fucking can't find $8 million to sign that tackle that was released by Washington. Unbelievable. And people say that Ryan Pace has done a good job. Some people like Hub Arkish have said that Ryan Pace has done a good job managing the cap. Sorry.
Yeah, Hub is like, if you listen to Hub on the score, no, don't get me wrong, he's a gentleman.
I love Hub. Please go ahead.
But he's really an apologist. Like, and I am too for the Bears, so I'm not going to. But, you know, we all have the people that we call out. You know, anyone that's on this podcast or anybody on any podcast on the Barroom Network has their opinions. So, but Hub is always trying to defend the organization. he's always defending the coach or the GM. He's really an apologist. I mean, but he worked for, he did the games on radio. I get it. So he's sort of grandfathered in as a Bear, and
yeah, I don't know.
That's cool. But he rarely ever comes after anybody with the Bears.
I don't know if I agree with you. I don't know if he's an apologist. I think Hub pretty much says it like it is. I think it's just sometimes I disagree with him, like that point where he said about the salary cap. But I think he's been critical of the Bears. I know he's been critical of the Bears, so I wouldn't say he's an apologist.
On that post game, he and Patrick Manley. Ooh.
Oh, really? Yeah. Well, you listen to it really religiously.
Well, I listen to it because I typically listen to yours in the podcast form.
Right.
And truth to be told, I'm not going to bullshit anybody. The one I want to listen to live is Dan Hampton,
the
WGN one, but they went on a weird thing and was doing it on Tuesday. So by default last year, I was listening to the score live and then listening to you all on the podcast form. So, cause I wanted to hear, I guess with the Barroom Network, and again, this is a strength, not a criticism, but we're all Bears fans. I mean, there's some random guys in the chat room that aren't, and that's cool. But on the score, you're going to get someone calling in that's going to be like, well, I'm in Wisconsin and I'm a Packers fan and fuck this team, or whatever. There's going to be, you get a larger view of what people are thinking because we're so narrow with us being Bear fans. So that's usually what I'm looking for, I guess, at the time, to see how the narrative is playing out. And then I compare it to what we think is Bear fans and then try to bring it on. As you know, I play those sound bites from other networks and things like that to try to give, this is what everybody's saying.
Yeah. It's a great feature during the season. Those of you who have not heard this show during the season, Dan does an outstanding job of getting sound from a lot of the podcasts and radio shows talking about the Bears. And that kind of sets up our discussion the rest of the way. We comment on what some of the professional broadcasters are saying about the Chicago Bears. And it's a nice 10-15 minute segment that he produces for us. Hey, Stephen Mee says Foles to the Jets seems to be building momentum. Would make sense since they let go of Flacco to Philly. They haven't a legit backup to the rookie. Yeah, I think we talked about that last week. They've got, James Morgan, I think, is the backup right now. So I think everybody is just waiting for that trade to happen. It's probably going to happen at a point where the Bears say, all right, just give us a can of beer for the guy.
Just give us the 7th round pick and please take his money off of the salary cap.
But I think the Bears, unless they need the money right now, they should try to wait to a point where they can build some kind
of like a few years ago when Minnesota traded like a 1st round pick for Sam Bradford because Teddy got hurt real late in camp.
Exactly. So there are going to be some injuries. There's going to be some general managers in a panic, and the Bears are going to be one of the first teams, if not the first team, that they're going to call because we've got 3 quarterbacks and one of them is on the trade market, and that's Nick Foles. All right, Dan Aguirre, we've got 40 minutes left. Again, we've got an abbreviated show.
We got a little bit longer than that, unless you want it to be. You got right at an hour.
All right, we've got an hour left. You want to start talking about some of these shows, or you want to?
I would love to tell you more about the boxing because there's some stories I didn't know.
All right, well, let's start by you letting our new listeners know about this show, that it's on Showtime. It's a sports documentary called The Kings. I've got an image of their poster up. It's a beautiful poster with Thomas Leonard, Sugar Ray Leonard, Thomas Hearns, Sugar Ray Leonard, Marvelous Marvin Hagler, and Roberto Duran pencil sketched. And tell us about the show. It's clearly a series, and it's about these 4 guys.
Yeah, it's a documentary. It's 4 hours long. Only the first 2 have aired, but I worked a day shift today at 911, and for whatever reason, usually if I'm on, like, I'm the extra, like I'm not really supposed to be there, like I don't fuck with the TV, like I'm just trying to trying to fit in. This is not where I'm supposed to be. I'm, the supervisor for midnight. But they didn't really mind me just grabbing all the remote today. And I saw that Showtime had posted the other two on their app.
Cool.
Even though they hadn't aired yet. So I was able to watch the last two. And it's so weird, like I got to juxtapose what I remembered as a kid versus getting like the real story on things behind the scenes that I wasn't privy to at the time. And just, or things I had forgotten and things I didn't know. I thought it was fascinating. The first two of the series kind of, again, it shows you, it really goes through, it's tedious to make you try to feel like you understand the fighter. You get a lot of Panama talk. You get a lot of Detroit talk. You get a lot of, for Hagler, he's in, he's black in Massachusetts, and it's kind of hard to get somebody to notice you there, because that's most people there, are Irish or Italian, or, it was just saying this guy's from Jersey and he just happens to be black there. So it tries to make, and then of course Sugar Ray, they really tried to make you learn like where the fighter's from and what you see from their perspective. And throughout the course of the 4 hour documentary, you get interviews from the fighters themselves, their corner, people that were analysts, whether it be like Al Bernstein, they used to do ESPN, if you recall.
Sure.
I'm trying. Larry Merchant for years, that was great on HBO.
Yeah.
And they mix in, spouses and all kinds of stuff, man. And like, there's so many good Duran things, like, because Duran's on there, even though they're having to subtitle, because he knew very little English. And so I'll start from there.
Okay.
With stuff I just wanted to tell you without like setting the stage for everybody else. Duran, like, to see things through his eyes, like, you remember when Bush went in to get Noriega, like for years, as the story went, Noriega was like, cool with us during the Iran-Contra stuff, like, we like you now, but, and then when that breaks, suddenly you're not our asset anymore. So one of the things that happened that I would have never known, when the U.S. invades or raids, if you're a Panamanian person and it's your perspective, they go to Duran's fucking house. They raid Duran's house because they think he's housing him.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And oh man, Duran was so funny on it too. Like, he was talking about, he said he was in a strip club. One of the first, let me rewind. So last week we talked about how Nomos like tarnished him, but I didn't realize he actually came back and won another title in 1983, and it happened to be on his birthday too. And the fans at MSG sung happy birthday to him. They were so happy that he won, and he beat a guy that was from Brooklyn. And the fans still wanted Duran to win, which is cool. So Duran's gotten his belt back, or not, maybe not he's not all the way back, but he's feeling good, and he's in a club. He says that a guy, it's like 2 a.m. in Miami, and he's like, I'm with these two women, and this guy runs up to me and says, hey man, I'll give you $1 million to fight Thomas Hearns. He's like, you give me $1 million right now and I'll sign the fucking contract. And he's like, well, it's 2:00 in the morning. He's like, well, don't fucking come over to me unless you have some money, like, don't, I'm here at the club having a good time. Before last call, the guy comes back and has like $500,000 like on him. It was like, I'll give it to you now if you just signed that we're gonna fight. And Duran's like, fuck it, man. I was lit. I signed the contract and I went and I fucked these two women and had a threesome with them for the next week. He's like, I was watching these girls do 69s on each other. I was coming all the time. And the next thing I know, he's like, man, I forgot to train. He said, Thomas Hearns hit me so fucking hard and I hit the deck. And he said, I swear to you, when I hit the deck, I thought I got to get up. And he's like, I started to think about those two girls. He was like, God damn it. He was like, the reason I'm laying down right now is because I was fucking those two women in that damn room. and wasn't training enough. He's like, I can't get up. I'm out. So he's laughing when he's telling the story too. He's like, but that's really what I thought when I was down. He's like, oh man, this is what you deserve for fucking those two girls.
Jeez. And that was against Tommy Hearns, right?
Yeah. And God, there's so many like little things that I didn't know. Like, you know, Hagler had to fucking change his name legally to Marvelous because no one wanted to call him that. Like on ABC Wide World of Sports, and he's getting no respect whatsoever, you know. And even when Hagler beats Duran, and obviously I wouldn't have known this, and you see the video of it, but I'm just from Sugar Ray's perspective, you see Duran talking to him, and Duran's laughing at him after he's lost the fight on points. It went the distance, but he's in Sugar Ray's ear because Sugar Ray was broadcasting for HBO, and he's whispering to him. And Sugar Ray said, by that time, you know, he and Duran were cool, and the Duran said, "Why are you ducking this guy, man? You can fuck him up." And he goes, you know, because Sugar Ray had already retired because he had an eye injury, and Sugar Ray said at that time it really gave him a lot of confidence to think he could beat Hagler because Duran's like, look, I just fought him. He's like, just as long as you don't go in there and try to like match him for power, if you box him, you'll win. But then now I watched the fight on HBO when they actually did fight. And this is kind of why I never liked Sugar Ray. And maybe if I saw him in the Olympics and all that stuff when the documentary starts, I would have been a fan, but I always kind of felt like Sugar Ray was like Tom Brady, you know, like he's getting all the calls. Like I watched the second Thomas Hearns fight too, when Hearns clearly beat him, and they call it a draw. It's like, you know, he's got that Muhammad Ali thing where they fucking cheat for him no matter what. There's no way. Even as a kid, I knew that Marvin Hagler won the fight, but I did not remember the stuff after the fight that was on there, which was fascinating to me. Like Hagler's in the ring and he's talking in his interview, which I had no recollection of, or maybe don't even know if I ever saw it, but he's talking to Larry Merchant and he's like, man, this is bullshit. He's like, I won the fight. Everybody knows I won the fight. And Sugar Ray sees him talking and is dejected and comes over to him. He's like, Marvin, come on, man, we're friends. It happens. And Marvin doesn't want. He's like, man, it's bullshit. You know you lost. And that's like fucking Ali. We can go through so many fights where Ali only won because of his reputation on points. The same thing with Sugar Ray. Sugar Ray had no business taking Marvin Hagler's title or beating Thomas Hearns the second time. I mean, he literally got his ass. Put it this way, in the second fight against Hearns, he got knocked down twice. And Hearns didn't even hit the mat, and he still lost. Or it was still a draw, rather. So if you're doing a 10-point must system, that's 2 rounds right there that he has to make up because of 2 knockdowns. So how do you make it even then? There's no way to make that even. So yeah, the documentary made me not like Sugar Ray even more because he's just. I mean, I know that's what Duran thought early on too, was that this guy's, and Marvin Hagler as well, thought this guy, you know, all of his fights are on TV, he gets everything handed to him. But I always resent the guy that always gets the calls. That's why I've never liked LeBron James. You know, that's why I like Isaiah versus Jordan, you know, because Jordan's going to get all the fucking calls. I don't want to piss you off on that, but I'm just giving you it as an example. The guy that gets all the breaks and shit, it pisses me off because I'm always on the other side of that. Although most often in those Bulls finals, I was going for Chicago. Because it's not like I hated Jordan or anything. I hated what he represented. If he walked, it didn't matter. If he pushed off, it didn't matter. And it's the same thing with Sugar Ray in this documentary. But Marvin Hagler never fights again. They didn't say that like he was so dejected or pissed off. He just seemed happy in retirement. And they're showing all the other guys like, man, Duran had a fight at 47. Hearns had a fight really later on in his career as well, like when he was clearly done. But it's really well done. You get a lot of these backstories on all these fights and shit that I didn't know, and they really mix it well, like with footage from the fight, with still photos, great interviews. It's just so well done. And as it's going off, they show Reagan leaving because all these guys are coming up in the 80s right after Ali's done.
Mm-hmm.
So it always tells you what's going on in America. And as Reagan's leaving, it's the rise of Tyson, and all of these guys are down.
Mm-hmm.
Or they're too old now, or in Marvin's case, he's already retired. So it's just really well done. And if you like history, again, it shows you what's going on with Reagan at the time and what's going on with America. And not so much in a political sense, like I'm clearly not a Ronald Reagan fan, but it's not about that. It's showing
just
you
to serve
from an
context.
Yeah. It's not slamming Reagan any more than it is cheering Reagan. It's just showing you what was going on at the time. There's a lot of Carter leading up to it. So if you like history and if you liked old school boxing in any way, it's a fascinating, it is so well done. A 4-hour documentary. I can't recommend it any more than I've already put it over. And it's amazing. Like I've seen the Hagler Hearns fight later, like on ESPN or something in a replay. I did not watch that live. That was like 85.
Mm-hmm.
But man, like I need to go back and rewatch that. I know I have it, but it's just, I didn't realize. I mean, I knew it went 3 rounds.
Mm-hmm.
I knew it was stiff, but damn, like at the time, like Hagler's got a cut. And Richard Steele, the official, wanted to call the fight. And he's like, you can't fucking call this fight. Because he's like, you absolutely cannot stop this fight. And they're like, well, you got blood. He's like, motherfucker, I can see I'm hitting him.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm out there hitting him. So Hagler goes out in the 3rd round and is like, look, if I don't knock him out right now, they're going to steal this from me and stop it.
That's the 2nd fight, correct?
No, they only fought once.
Oh, you're right. No. Hagler and Sugar Ray. Oh,
no,
yeah,
Hagler
right.
and Hearns.
Okay, my bad. Okay.
Yeah, Hagler and Hearns. See, Hearns cut him in the 1st round,
mm-hmm.
even though Hagler, I mean, they have a great 1st round. And then the 2nd round, Hagler wins, just because you can't keep up that pace. But he's got a cut, a really bad cut, and they're wanting to stop it. And he's like, fuck no. He's like, I got this guy. Like in the 2nd round, he's got Hearns' legs wobbling and everything.
Mm-hmm.
So, but he's got this bad cut. So he said, I know if I don't go out and knock him out right now, I could lose this because they could fuck me and stop it.
Mm-hmm.
So he went out and he said what he thought because they had Hagler's voice playing, when he went down, he's like, if he gets up, I'm going to try to fucking kill him. He better stay down. Because his whole livelihood is that for years, Ray Leonard had ducked him. And like, I didn't know this, like Sugar Ray had this event and Sugar Ray admitted he was on coke and was drunk and out of his fucking mind, where he invites Hagler to this fucking event. This is 82,
mm-hmm.
where he's going to announce to the world that, this event that, hey, it's kind of like LeBron's moment on ESPN when he signs with the Heat, where everyone like looks back and says, ooh, that was bad. The decision. Remember when they called it the decision?
Mm-hmm.
Well,
sure.
Sugar Ray had his own decision because he was trying to tell the world if he's going to fight again, because he had that detached retina. And so Hagler's there, and Hagler thinks that he's invited me, so he's going to announce that we're going to fight. So he brings him there and has this big event with the press and all this shit. And he's like, it would be such a great fight, but it's never going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, I'm retired. He's like, well, why the fuck did you bring me here? And like, for years, Hagler felt like he got no respect.
He didn't.
Yeah. So that's why like the fight with Hearns like made him he says something like to Johnny Carson. He's like, I've been trying to get on your show for years. He's like, but that vindicated him. But the Sugar Ray fight really hurt him because he obviously won. Oh. I mean, he obviously won, and he was really, really like, I didn't remember him being so like shook up about it after the fight, which he should have been. I mean, like they compared it to like when you lose your belt and it's completely taken away from you, like just jobbed from you.
Mm-hmm.
It's like you go through a grieving process like you lost a kid or a sibling. You got to mourn a death because you just know that it wasn't, it just was stolen from you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was my recollection of it as well, is that fight was clearly stolen away from Marvin Hagler. I watched it over and over again with my friends, and there was, there were some of my buddies were close or big Sugar Ray Leonard fans and would have gone to their grave supporting Leonard in that fight. But I think to any nonpartisan person, it was clear who the winner was, and that was none other than Mr. Marvelous Marvin Hagler. I'm actually digging up some highlights of that fight as I speak right now, and there it is. It's Leonard had those quick hands, but man, Hagler was a Terminator type of boxer, and he just kept coming forward, and he had that unorthodox style. Reminded me a little bit of Kenny Norton, the heavyweight who beat Muhammad Ali. He had that,
but they had it taken away from him, though.
Yes, indeed, he sure did.
In the third fight, he absolutely was screwed in that third fight.
Yeah, we talked about that recently, but the Leonard Hagler fight though is one for the ages. It's a great fight, and the entire fight is on YouTube for those of you who want to watch it.
What I didn't remember, how like in Rocky 2.
Mm-hmm.
When they're training Stallone like to not be a southpaw, to kind of like screw with Apollo's head.
Right.
Well, Hagler did some of that fighting right-handed shit early in the Ray Leonard fight, and I didn't remember that. And he lost the first 2 rounds. So basically, they go to his corner and they're like, "Fuck that shit. Just go back to fighting, man. Go back to being southpaw." And one of the guys, I think it was Larry Merchant, was saying that in the end that cost Hagler because the fight was so close. But the Merchant also admits that he was Sugar Ray's neighbor and his best friend or whatever. So he's like, but those early rounds could have like cost him his belt because he was fucking around early. But I don't know. Like I've watched it not recently, but several times. I watched it live, but again, I watched it as an adult later too.
Mm-hmm.
And Hagler won. I mean, it wasn't even close to me. Like, and one of the judges had Sugar Ray winning by 8 points. Had it like 118 to 110 or something. I'm like, there's no way that you can watch this fight and think that he fucking won by 8 points.
Well, it's one of the reasons why boxing has suffered so much is because there's so much corruption. Clearly, some of the judges, and I can't say for sure in that particular case, but boy, you got to wonder, judges have been paid off since the time, boxing had judges. Judges have been paid off, and if a fight is in Vegas, I've heard many fighters say, you can never tell what's going to happen in Vegas. Judges get paid off, whether it's by the fighter's camp or just gamblers, just professional gamblers, guys, with their noses turned to the side and their own ears, they have cauliflower ears. They come and pay the judge, $1 million because they're going to make 10 million at the gambling window betting on the fighter that they've fixed the fight for. So, which brings me to a question I had for you, Dan, and I'll start off. Some of the best boxing movies you've ever seen. I got to start off with one that was from the late 1950s. It's called The Setup, and it's the story of a boxer who doesn't know it, but his manager has told him, go out there and fight, but he's given him misinstruction on how to fight to get him to lose because he has been paid by the mob for the fighter to take a dive. And so it's a great boxing film about the underworld, the corrupt nature of boxing, shot in beautiful black and white. It's called The Setup. I highly recommend that movie to you and our listeners. Any boxing movie that immediately comes to mind to you that you'd like to talk about?
The Fighter.
The Fighter with
the Christian Bale and Mark Wahlberg.
Yes, that's a great film.
Where he's playing what's his name, Mickey Ward.
Yes, Mickey Ward, right? Based on a true story.
Which is based on a true story as well. And Christian Bale, I think he won an Academy Award for that. It seems like he's playing the older brother who got all this notoriety because he fought Sugar Ray in like '78. And Sugar Ray slipped down, and like he's been telling everyone in his community in Massachusetts that he had knocked down Sugar Ray, but the guy had gotten strung out on dope and was really, really fucked up. He goes to jail at one point, and is just a serial fuck up living off that one moment like 15 years before.
Mm-hmm.
And Christian Bale plays him so perfectly, but you see his character's redemption is through his brother when he gets out, and he helps his brother win his belt late in his career.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what really happened. So I'm not a huge Christian Bale guy, but he's phenomenal. And if you ever have, and as I've told you, I've got friends and family that, were addicts or are addicts still. So to see someone actually hit that redemption, it's actually, it's a good story. You feel good about that, seeing someone fuck up so terribly, but able to at least find some semblance of making amends.
Mm-hmm.
And it feels like Rocky, if Rocky would have come out, years later, because it's so much more gritty.
Mm-hmm.
And darker. It's rated R, man. I mean, it's a great film.
People in the chat room are chiming in. Raging Bull says Bare Truth. And when we were
Raging Bull, of course.
Outstanding. And the documentary When We Were Kings, which is one of my favorite documentaries of all time. You've seen it, right, Dan?
Yeah, absolutely. I saw it 25 years ago, and I watched it again a couple of years ago. So I've seen it recently. And again, it's amazing to me how things like George Foreman has his dog with him, and they view him as like the white man because he has a fucking dog. And they have Ali's got the crowd basically saying to kill Foreman, and
Ali Boombaye.
Yeah, man. Like I know politically, I understand what he represents, but man, this guy was more narcissistic than Matt Nagy. And that's saying a lot. And he was a bad guy. And we've gone through other stuff like he did with Frazier and then the Foreman. And I know that he's a hero to so many people. So and he's passed away. But his antics in the ring, calling George Foreman a gorilla constantly, calling him an uneducated N-word, all these things, like he did a lot of shit that I don't think even he could have gotten away with in 2021.
Yeah, I'm with you. Bare Truth number 9 says, here's a good question. Sweepy or Mayweather in their prime? I say Sweepy. Whitaker. Floyd Whitaker.
Yeah, Pernell Whitaker was great.
Whitaker, yeah.
But I can't, man, I've been one of these guys that hated on Floyd and thought that Floyd just basically fought, in a defensive posture the majority of every fight that he had, and then would sneak up and win on points. But I mean, look at the guys, he's unbeaten. So, I mean, fuck. And Pacquiao can say, oh, well, it was my shoulder. We waited when I got past my prime, whatever. They had the super fight. Pacquiao's whole thing was to throw punches from weird angles and shit. And then it's supposed to be able to force Floyd to throw punches. It was going to be his style that beat Floyd, and Floyd beat him. So Floyd, I guess you could say, is a boring fighter, but he's also an unbeaten fighter. So it's hard for me. I feel like the way I feel when I'm talking about LeBron, like I'm almost a Floyd hater, almost a LeBron hater, but it's hard to argue with success. Although in LeBron's sense, you can say, well, he's lost the finals like 26 times, but yeah, whatever.
Stephen Mee says Journeyman with Patty Considine, highly recommended a movie about a boxer who gets brain damage and how he's treated by his peers afterwards. He says it's a modern classic. I'll be looking for that, Stephen. Thanks for the tip. Journeyman. Bruce Ali Walter Jordan says Dan doesn't like boxing, he likes brawling.
Well, no, I liked in recent times, the last 15 years or so, I was a big fan of Vitaly and Vladimir Klitschko, and both of them were, well, especially Vladimir was viewed as a guy that always boxed because he's so smart, and he did just enough to get by on points and never really just let it fly. But ironically, in his last fight, and I can't remember the guy that beat him, He was a little bit older. He had that belt for, more than a decade, and lost it and had one more shot. And he comes back and he's pretty much taking a beating, but he lasts all the way to the 14th round. And or maybe it was the 12-round fight. Maybe it was like 11th round. He gets knocked down. And he never really got knocked down, and he got up. My point is, even though he lost, he got so much positive spin from people that he never got in victory because he showed so much heart.
Mm-hmm.
So it's weird how things like that happen in boxing. But in recent times, I haven't been a fan. I really came onto the Klitschko's. I don't know if you watched. It's ironic because we were talking about Marvin Hagler worrying about them stopping the fight with Hearns because of that cut. Right. But in 2003, which would prove to be Lennox Lewis's final fight, he fought Vitaly Klitschko at the Staples Center in LA, and it was 6 rounds of a fucking slugfest. If you never saw it, you should go. These two guys are beating the shit out of each other, but I dare say that Klitschko was up probably 5 rounds to 1.
Mm-hmm.
But he has a really big cut. So that's at the cost. He's taking 2 shots to hit Lennox with 1. And he's not afraid of him. He's going in and just fucking him up. And they stop the fight, even though he's up huge. And Lennox retired after the fight. And of course, Klitschko was just inconsolable after the fight because he's like, don't stop, please don't stop, And, so yeah, and his brother was in his corner, so that's what sold me on them, and I started watching them. But since Vladimir retired, there's not, and they weren't really Americans, and most of their fights were hard to find because they were always fighting in like Germany and
right,
and but there hasn't been an American fighter probably since Lennox or certainly a little bit before that, Evander, that you could really think, their fight's going to be on pay-per-view other than Mayweather. I'm talking about heavyweights. So there hasn't really boxing kind of lost of its mass appeal to maybe UFC, although I'm not a fan of UFC at all. But it's hard to be behind a boxer now. Like when I was a kid, you had Top Rank Boxing was on ESPN, and HBO always had boxing on. The big fights were on. And even before pay-per-view, it's kind of, it's lost now,
Mm-hmm. I totally agree. And by the way, we were watching highlights of the Klitschko-Lennox fight as you were talking, and that cut on Klitschko's face was massive. There was a lot of blood coming, and he was absorbing a lot of shots. And while, as I recall the fight, it was fairly close, but Lewis was definitely ahead, and that referee, that stoppage of that fight might have saved Klitschko's eye vision on that.
It definitely saved Lennox's belt, though, as he was going to lose.
Well, you think so, huh?
Oh, Vitaly was up on points, and he didn't fear Lennox at all.
Okay. Well, I'm going to definitely put it on my list here of things to go back and take a look at. Bear Truth number 9 says Sweet Pea is way underrated, and Dan, you should go watch some of its fights again. So he's urging you to watch some of those fights.
Yeah. Who was the big one in like 99? Did he fight Floyd in 9? Who was his last hurrah? I remember I was a freshman in college, and I thought it was a fight that Whitaker won, and he lost on the points. Was it Mayweather? Was Mayweather around in 99?
Yeah, I think he was. Let me see. I'm looking at his record here. He let's see, 99. Felix Trinidad is who he fought and lost.
Okay. Yeah, that fight I thought that he won.
El Puerto Riqueño. Well, Whitaker was on his way down. Trinidad was on his way up. So probably, the referees were paid off on that one too. A big fight at Madison Square Garden. Couple of other notes here from people tuning in. Zach says, I liked the Gladiator boxing movie. One of my favorites. I don't think that's a real movie. Do you?
I don't know it if it is. I truly don't.
I don't know either. Seeing, as Steven says, seeing as both of you YouTubers, I'm not sure what that means, but I'll try this one. Steven says Klitschko's Breeze are Ukrainian and mainly fought in Germany, where the crowds are very reserved when they watch boxing. So there you go.
I just said that they fought in Germany. I said that a minute ago.
That's right. He wasn't disagreeing with you.
Oh, okay. I was going to say I said that.
Bear Truth says that it was De La Hoya that he fought. That's probably the fight you're thinking
that's the one. That's the De La Hoya fight. He's got that sort of Sugar Ray Leonard mystique.
Yeah.
That, regardless of what really happened in the ring, like they just loved him. I mean, wasn't he the Golden Boy as well? Wasn't that his nickname?
Oh, yeah. And that's the name of his promotion company, Oscar De La Hoya. It was in April of 1997 that those two fighters went at it. Well done, Bear Truth number 9. Regarding the boxing game, I did see on Showtime this week, a week after it happened, that Showtime had the replay of Mayweather fighting the YouTube guy. What's his name? Jesus, I forgot his name now. Let me look it up real quick. He's got a brother. Did you hear about this fight?
No.
Logan Paul. Logan Paul is a YouTube sensation. He's become famous. He's in his early 20s on YouTube, and he's gotten in some. His brother is a professional fighter, but Logan Paul has gotten into some decent shape. He's a heavyweight. And so they set up this exhibition match with Floyd Moneymaker Mayweather. And so it got 1 million subscribers on pay-per-view. So they made some money on this thing. And so I saw the fight this week, and the first 2 rounds, Mayweather played that style. He was just not doing anything, kind of sizing up the fighter and getting the kid to throw punches so he would tire himself out. And as the fight progressed, Mayweather took control and was banging the shit out of this guy. And it was an easy, although there was no official decision, it was easy to anyone that watched the fight that Mayweather won the last 6 out of 8 rounds. And but what was amazing is that this kid who has made his fame on YouTube didn't get knocked out by Floyd Mayweather. And that is, I thought that was something this kid could hang his hat on. The fact that he went into the ring with a guy who's considered one of the greatest boxers of all time, and even though there was this massive weight advantage, still the fact that he left on his feet. This guy has had, I think, 2 other exhibition type matches, and he's 0-1 and 1 tie in those boxing matches. So it was.
Man, I'm not buying it. I know what you're saying, but if Floyd really wanted to train and knock this guy out, he could. I can tell you, I told you the story once before where he fought the UFC guy. What's his name again? Conor McGregor.
Yes.
I watched that live. I told you how I ended up winning $20 on it, even though I was at someone else's house and they didn't make me to put in on the pay-per-view either.
Right.
So I ended up getting paid $20 to watch the fight. But man, he had Conor McGregor, who's, from all accounts, a bad motherfucker.
Mm-hmm.
If they hadn't stopped it, he could have beat that guy to death.
Well, and Mayweather said after the fight, people got to remember, I'm in my 40s. I'm not a professional fighter anymore. I'm doing this as an exhibition, And so he was downplaying, the fact that he didn't knock him out. And he was very, very respectful of Paul after the fight and said, I got to give the guy credit. He came out here. He wasn't afraid. He fought hard. He might have a future at this. And so, it didn't sound to me, if Mayweather really wanted to knock him out, he might have wanted to say that afterwards. He just sort of said, hey, I'm in my 40s, man. I'm retired. So
yeah, it's a payday. It's what I'm saying. He didn't train to knock him out.
Right. He said something like, I made a couple of $1 million just off the sponsors on my shorts. And so it was definitely just a payday. And he kept reminding people, my kids.
I think he owes a lot of money to IRS, actually.
Oh, really? Well, I wouldn't be surprised because he deals in cash all the time, and you know that what happens. You know, it's hard to get a money trail on something. But I hadn't heard that he was having IRS problems. But I've never been a big Mayweather fan. Not to take away from his accomplishments, the guy has done tremendous things in the ring and so forth. Just his style of boxing is kind of a sleeper to me, and some people who are lovers of the sweet science will tell me, well, that's because you don't understand the game of boxing. Well, it could be. I just want to see some guys beat the shit out of each other, and Mayweather never was willing to engage with fighters on that. I'd much rather see that great round of Hearns and Hagler than watching Mayweather dance around the ring for 12 rounds. So be that as it may.
I agree. I agree with that. But I really liked the heavyweights, and even though that documentary that I spoke so fondly of was about, you know, middleweights and welterweights, I love the era of, say, you know, Tyson and Evander and Riddick Bowe.
Oh, yeah.
You know, George Foreman coming back, you know, Michael Moore, you know, like the late 80s into the late 90s, the heavyweight scene was tremendous.
Yeah, I agree with you. I agree. And that era with, you know, those guys from that documentary, you know, at the welterweight class, that was a great era of boxing. Truly great. Stephen Mee clarifies, Gladiator is a movie with James Marshall and Cuba Gooding. Excellent movie. Great shout, Zach, about something. Zach Sullivan earlier said it's a real movie. Cuba Gooding Jr., Brian Dennehy, Robert Loggia, and it's a cool soundtrack. I love movies with cool soundtracks. I will definitely check this out, brother. Remember the title, Gladiator. I thought it was about gay guys or something.
I was thinking of that movie that everybody loved with Russell Crowe that I didn't enjoy.
I love that movie. Are you fucking kidding me?
I did not like it. I don't like Russell Crowe. But yeah, I didn't enjoy that film. Everybody at the time that came out like 2001 or something, all my friends liked it. My girlfriend at the time liked it. And I'm just sitting there like, I'd rather be home fucking.
No, Dan, you only saw it once?
Probably saw it 2 or 3 times then, because my friends liked it a lot. When it first came out on DVD or VHS, whichever it was, they were watching that shit a lot back then. So
this is a great fucking movie, Dan. I don't understand why you wouldn't like this movie. I'm gonna get really mad at you if you don't change your mind.
I just didn't enjoy it, man. I don't know. I'll tell you another film that the same friends.
We're gonna watch it again in Cleveland. That's what we're doing Sunday night.
One of my friends that I'm talking about here is my cousin, who's the addict now, which breaks my fucking heart. Is out on the fucking street, like, you know, doing terrible things, probably man. Sucking dick to get meth and everything.
So sorry.
No, yeah, I'm just saying. But back when he was still himself, he loved Gladiator. But the movie they all loved and made me watch, and I didn't like it. And everybody's like, "What? How can you not like?" I did not like Braveheart.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of that. I can see why you don't like that. And it's a good movie, but I've seen it once and I probably will never see it again unless I'm forced to.
Yeah, I just, and it's not anything against Mel Gibson. I know a lot of people don't like him because, you know, they say he's an anti-Semite and because of that Jesus movie, which I would never watch. And then I guess he said some things when he was arrested once. I don't know. I'm not even being political. I just didn't like Braveheart on its face. Even if I thought Mel Gibson was a great guy, I just didn't like the movie.
Stephen Mee says, what the fuck? Gladiator is fucking excellent. How dare you diss that flick?
I just didn't like it, man. I don't know. I didn't like it.
And Oliver Reed's last film, he actually died during the filming of the movie, and they had to have like a stand-in for some pickup shots that they needed of him, and they did some clever cutting and so forth. So, but I'll tell you this about that movie. First of all, I'm going to send you a link to the soundtrack. Just listen to the soundtrack alone. This is one of the best movie soundtracks ever fucking made. Secondly, I will tell you, it has one of, spoiler alert for those who haven't seen Gladiator, it has one of the best death scenes of all time, when Russell Crowe dies and he is thinking about his wife and his child who have already been killed by this fucking asshole, he is lying.
Who looks like Sylvie, by the way, Mark Silverman. He's the king.
That's right. Phoenix, right? River Phoenix. He's
Joaquin.
Joaquin, you're right. He's lying in the middle of the stadium, and the woman in the picture comes to him and says, go to them, basically saying, let yourself go. And his body starts to physically rise as he's going to heaven, and the music is swelling. I get chills just recalling that fucking scene. It is so fucking masterfully done by Ridley Scott, the director. It is a great fucking movie. And while you and I will not watch it in Cleveland, I will be playing the soundtrack for you to get you to ease your thoughts, your dislike of that movie. It's one of the best ones.
You know, maybe I should reevaluate it. I'm not sure. I haven't watched it probably since like 2003 or so.
Whoa. What's that?
For your little one.
You hear that?
Everything in the box is
Okay, I'm sorry.
That wasn't me. It
was me. I had a window open. I'm sorry. So you might reevaluate it, you say?
Yeah, I mean, I would be open to it. I don't want to watch Braveheart again, but if Gladiator, if I missed the I don't know. I just did not like it. But like I said, I haven't watched it since the early days of the W. Bush administration for sure.
Stephen Me says, now you don't like Braveheart? And Stephen says that he's in Braveheart. Stephen lives across the pond. He says it was filmed at Trim Castle County Meth. It's an awesome film. Stephen, if you can grab a screen grab of your of any shot that you're in, I'd love to see it. We could talk about it next week. Just send it to me on Twitter or my email, aldo@bearsbarroom.com. That is awesome, Stephen. An extra on that film. That must have been a blast watching Mel Gibson make anti-Semitic jokes on set and stuff.
Did you watch the Jesus movie?
No, you know what? I one of the many DVDs that are unopened on my shelf. I have it, and after I bought it, I started thinking, why would I want to watch 2 hours of the Lord Jesus Christ getting his ass kicked? I don't get it. And there's been a lot of controversy about that film.
But why? That's why I guess that was going to be my question, because not that I'm some theological scholar, but you know, those are the kind of things that's been propagated that really happened to Jesus. If you believe in Jesus, which I just suspend belief and say that I do for the sake of the argument. I don't, but let's just pretend that I did, because I could be wrong. But let's just pretend that I'm a firm believer. What did Mel Gibson do in the film that was seen as disrespectful? Didn't he tell the story the way? Didn't Jesus allegedly go through all this stuff? I mean, I never understood what he did that was so wrong on that.
Well, I think, and we're talking here about Mel Gibson's The Passion of the Christ. I think that one of the things is that it was felt that he went overboard in depicting Jewish people as, I guess, the Jews in the movie as being overly violent, and that perhaps
they crucified a guy. I mean,
that is true.
If you're going to kill a guy with crucifixion, you got to own up to some violence. I mean, but that's not. Maybe they felt that he was calling all Jewish people like a monolith of violence, but
and we know his story about his father. He's said a lot of anti-Semitic things and so forth. Time magazine listed it as one of the most ridiculously violent films of all time, and that his zeal for director Mel Gibson's zeal for showing the violence towards Jesus Christ is questionable here as to whether he should have lingered so much in some of these shots. I haven't seen it, and I don't know if I will, to be honest with you.
Did you ever see the Curb Your Enthusiasm episode where this is referenced?
No.
Oh my God. So oh God. I'm going to piss somebody off by retelling this story. Okay. It's in season 5. The episode's called The Christ Nail. And Larry's fictional wife at the time in the show, Cheryl's parents are there with him, and he's a fan of the movie and has bought one of the nails from the film off of eBay.
Oh, Jesus.
And is wearing it around his neck. At one point in the episode, God, it's hard to tell you all these subplots, how they come together. But one of the things is Cheryl wants to fire the person they have there that's like their help, whether she's a cook or a cleaner, like I don't know what the nanny, what would you call that? The person that's cleaning your house. I don't know.
A housekeeper.
A maid, a housekeeper. Yeah. So she happens to be a Mexican lady, and she doesn't like to wear a bra.
Mm-hmm.
And Cheryl's disgusted because her titties are always hard. Her nipples are always hard, like bursting through her shirt. So she tells Larry, you got to fire her. But Larry's like, she makes a great chicken salad. So eventually he has a conversation with her and he says, look, I want to buy you a bra. He's like, can you just try it? Just try it, and she agrees. But her husband finds out about it and he's pissed off. So first off, let's rewind. There's a thing that Jewish people use. I only know this because of Curb Your Enthusiasm. I forget what it's called, but Larry said it's a staple for the Jewish faith, a mezuzah or something you have hanging up. He said it's supposed to protect you from like anti-Semites burning your house down or something. And Larry's dad was going to be there. And he's like, quick, hang it up. And he's like, fuck, where's the hammer? Where's the nail? And he goes and grabs the Christ nail off of his father-in-law to hang up the mezuzah. And his father-in-law is like, what is that, my nail? That's blasphemy. That's blasphemy. And anyway, at the end of the episode, the guy's I'm doing a terrible job representing it. The housekeeper's husband is chasing him, and he had bought a replacement nail for his father-in-law, and it fell out of his pocket. And the guy that was chasing him stepped on the nail and started crying. And Larry was like, look, the nail, it saved me.
Mm-hmm.
And it turns like white and it's playing this holy music in the background. But it's very offensive to religious people, but I thought it was great. So
Steven says it's mezuzah.
It's called The Christ Nail, the episode.
We'll definitely have to look for that. There's a lot of Curb Your Enthusiasm episodes I have not seen, so
I've seen every episode.
Yeah, I'm anxious to sit down and watch them all, do a nice binge on it. According to Newsweek magazine, The Passion of the Christ was a deeply controversial film attracting criticism for anti-Semitic themes, inaccurate history, and extreme violence. The ADL worked with another Catholic bishops to have a group of scholars of different faiths examine the screenplay, and in June 2003 issued a press release saying the committee unanimously agreed that the screenplay reviewed was replete with objectionable elements that would promote anti-Semitism. So that's part of the criticism there. And PJ says, for those of us who believe in Jesus, we understand how he was bruised for our inequities. Americans like glossing over the past brutal moments. What other Chicago Bears show is going to give you theological discussions about Jesus Christ and the crucifixion?
Let me just say, too, just to defend myself for 1 second, not to be overly defensive, but I want to stress, and I'm not placating anybody religious when I say this.
Yeah, I know.
I could be wrong. The thing I always want people that are Christian to me is to just give me a respect and say, well, you're not a bad guy. And that's kind of like what I mean, fuck, I always, my whole life, I've had people like just not like me because they well, you don't subscribe to the same horse shit that I do. So we don't like you. So I've always just wanted you not to tell me that I'm wrong. So in turn, I'm not going to be a hypocrite and then say that you're wrong.
Right.
And I honestly believe that. That's my whole game, is to say, well, I really don't know. I mean, it's possible.
You're agnostic.
Yeah, but if I was forced to make a declaration, if you're like putting a gun to my head saying, tell me what you believe, I'm probably going to go with the non-believer. But, I don't want to be condescending or rule anything out because I don't know the answers.
I'm going to make sure there's no thunderbolt lightning coming our way.
Well, I don't, to the people that are religious that are listening is what I'm saying. Like, you could be totally fucking right. Really. I mean, I'm not saying like, I don't want you to think I'm saying you're wrong because I'm not. I really want to make that point.
Let me ask you a question. When the day comes and this is it, I got to leave. Are you going to say a prayer, say, God, if you're really there, I'm sorry, or
no, because if that's the case, I'm not worthy of it anyway. you can't just turn to religion just when shit's going bad. You got to be religious when things are going well, in my opinion. So to me, it would be transparently bullshit if I just suddenly decided to start praying. Like, I wouldn't deserve. I've gone my entire life, even going back to as a child, of not being comfortable in churches and not really wanting to be there and not believing. So I can't just suddenly just change that. Like, you can't make up for fucking 30 plus years of being like,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I guess you can in theory, but it would be so like disingenuous. And I just feel like I don't, if there's a God at this point, I don't deserve to be saved. I mean, I'm just being honest with you. Not because I'm a bad guy, not because I've done anything that would, but I've also renounced that kind of lifestyle, you know, for the most part, like not in a caustic way, but I haven't been religious my entire life.
Right.
So I don't think that it would be even fair for me to attempt to make things right at this point. And yeah, I hope that I am wrong. I'll say that because my mother was such a believer in Jesus, and she was a Protestant. My dad's side was Catholic.
Mm-hmm.
So I got both sides of this shit. But my mom believes so much that I really wish for her that there is something more, because otherwise she's just in the ground right now.
Yeah, I hear you, brother. Chubbs is in the chat. He says, whoever wrote that article with their opinion about anti-Semitic and inaccurate history is an idiot. They have no way of proving the accuracy of the history of Jesus any more than the Bible. Well, it wasn't the author of the Newsweek article, Chubbs, who is, I'm looking for a name here, Stav Ziv. It was the Anti-Defamation League and a number of other religious people who were critical. This reporter is simply reporting on what people like Rabbi, I just saw the name here, Rabbi, excuse me, a certain rabbi said, has issues with the film. So just to be clear, it wasn't the writer as opposed to, it was just a reporter reporting on what was being told to them by Jewish organizations and the Anti-Defamation League.
I hate to be abrupt, but I do have to go in 4 minutes. Like I have to, and I hate to started all this shit. Wait
a minute. Everybody in the fucking chat room says, well, if this is an abbreviated show, does that mean we're not going to hear about Dan's sex life? And I promise
I still haven't gotten laid in a few weeks. It's been like almost a month now. So I haven't had any new stories. Like I haven't had time to even try, but I know in theory I'd love to get laid soon, but I only have a few minutes. What do you want? Like a classic story? Yeah.
Yes. Give me a classic sex story from your past before you were 21 years old. No, before you were 18 years old. How old were you?
When I was 18, I'd only fucked 2 women. So
okay.
I mean,
well, tell us about one of those 2 women.
Well, I was going to give you a better one.
Okay, go ahead.
The first lady that I fucked after my marriage, I went 6 months butthurt, and like sad and down and, contemplating death and all these things. I'm not trying to get attention right now when I say that. That's really how I felt, where you just feel like the end, everything's coming down on you. Like you're going to lose your house. You've lost your pride. You've lost your dignity. You've lost my whole existence was as Marissa's husband. And that's all being taken from me, So it was so, a long like process to even think about, sleep with another woman, because you say these things. Yes, I do, and like you mean what you're saying, and this is gonna be the last pussy I ever fucked, and I meant that, So here we are, 6 months later. I'm watching the Bears in Tampa Bay from opening day of '85, just because I'm drunk at the house by myself. And this lady starts messaging me, and her name's Beth, and she grew up on the same street that I did. And she was kind of mean to me, but that cliche, I guess, when like people are mean to other, like when you're in school, maybe they really like you, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
She says, and first off, I was never gothic. I liked rock music, the same shit that I listen to now. But she was like, she happens to be black, by the way. So she goes, I so desperately wanted to be a part of that gothic scene that you were in. I was like, well, I really wasn't part of a gothic scene. I just listened to rock music. But anyway, so we go back and forth, and she's like, and trust me, the payoff's coming on this. But she's like, oh, I don't have my kids tonight. And I was like, oh, okay. I just keep talking, like I'm drunk and I'm just not. She's like, well, I'm telling you right now, I always have my kids and I don't have my kids tonight. And she's like, do you want me to spell it out for you? If you want to fuck me, I will come to your house. I was like, holy shit, because I hadn't even contemplated that. I truly hadn't. Like I just thought it was cool, like that this girl liked me when we were in school, and I never knew it because she was always such a bitch to me. Mm-hmm. So I thought, you liked me? Like she looked a lot better when she was younger. So I'd have been like, fuck, why didn't I hit it then? But anyway, so she comes over, and this is the first time I've only seen two like this. And the first time it happened, I thought, maybe I've drunk too much vodka tonight, and maybe I'm seeing shit. Because I was sitting there from behind, and I thought I saw some liquid just flying around and shit. And I was like, maybe I'm just drunk. Then the second time she starts squirting this shit out, like I stopped and I just acknowledged it with her. And I wasn't cool about it at all. I was like, okay, your pussy squirts. Holy shit. Like we're still fine, but I had never seen a squirting pussy. So like internally I had to stop and clap and give her an ovation. And the thing is, and this isn't a racial thing, I'm just telling you, like this lady happened to be black, and the second lady I saw happened to be white that squirted. Like her pussy, like that shit tasted like pussy. Mm-hmm. I don't know about the guys listening in the room, but I happen to like pussy, so a vagina flavored vagina to me, sign me up. I'll eat that motherfucker all day. But so it tasted good. The second lady that squirted, and she's such a good person, so I would never say her name. The white lady, her shit tasted like she was like fucking killing me when she would squirt. It tasted like, I was like, is this piss? What is this? Like every time she would start squirting, I would hate it. Like literally it tasted awful. But the black lady, the shit tasted like pussy. And the white lady, it tasted like piss.
Chubbs says that 90%, he read this somewhere, 90% of the liquid coming out of a squirting pussy is actually urine.
Well, her urine tasted like good pussy. The other, the white lady, I will not say her name because again, she's a good lady. I wouldn't want to hurt her feelings. And yeah, that's it. I got to go to work now.
All right, you go to work. I'll finish up here. Again, that's Dan Aguirre. What's your Twitter handle? Let people know so they can follow you.
Bears fan _Dan, isn't that it? I've had it since like 2010. I guess I should know. It's got an underscore in there.
That's right. Bears. I always have problem finding it, but that's exactly it. Bears fan _Dan. Follow him on Twitter. He doesn't share any of these sex stories on Twitter, but maybe one day he will. Who knows?
Twitter, I usually just use, especially if you're not a Democrat or not a liberal, you probably won't like to follow me. You're cool to follow me, and I'll follow you back. It's just like my Facebook. Because again, I'm in a red state. There's so many people that really know me in real life, so I try not to post that shit on Facebook because I don't want to be argumentative or caustic with people. And it's such a divisive thing, like if I think this about Trump and you don't, automatically we're supposed to fucking butt heads. And I don't want to do that with people that I know in real life. And most of the people on Twitter, I don't really know. Mm-hmm. So that's why I rely much more on Twitter to view or to convey political thoughts that I normally have no other forum to do so in.
Well, that sounds good. A lot of comments about piss and urine and vaginas and stuff in the chat room, but we'll get you caught up on next week's show, Dan. Take care, and we'll see you next Tuesday. We'll do a marathon on Tuesday or as long as we can go, okay?
Well, let's hope your stomach gets better, Aldo.
Thank you, sir.
All right, be well.
All right. I just want to let people know that, let me get rid of Dan's picture here. As attractive as he is, this calls for a close-up of me. Just want to let people know that tomorrow it's hockey on the Barroom Network. We will start at 2 p.m. Joey and Vinny Parisi will talk about the NHL playoffs, all the latest Chicago Blackhawks news. On Thursday, it's Crosstown Crosstalk. Those two guys are going to talk about the Cubs and the Sox. Both of them winners tonight, by the way. No, actually, the Cubs lost 3-2 in New York to the Mets, and it's the White Sox who were winners tonight. So it's going to be interesting to see what they have to say about that. The Cubs' road woes continue, and the White Sox playing a tough Rays team even up that series. So they'll have a lot of baseball talk and Major League Baseball talk. Those guys know their baseball and their hockey. So check out those shows. And we've got a lot of other stuff happening. Just follow us on Barroom Network on Twitter. I haven't been active the last few days because I've been sick, but I'm starting to feel better. So thanks everyone who has tuned in tonight for Dan and Aldo Bare Their Souls, and let people know what we do here. It's an adult show. We crack some jokes here, and it's a lot of pussy, dick, fart jokes, and so it's not for everybody. But if you know somebody that likes this stupid kind of humor, this is the place. And we also talk a lot of Chicago Bears football. All right, everybody, we'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to Dan and Aldo Bare Their Souls. Make sure you subscribe to the Barroom Network and you give us a rating on iTunes. Until next week, my name is Nomse. Bear down.